What up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're going to be starting a brand new series. It's going to be me and my son Trev.
Right.
We're going to be starting this book. It's called Crypt of the Vampire. As you know, I'm obsessed with vampires. Trev, do you like vampires?
Kinda.
He kind of likes vampires. But this is basically a choose-your-own-adventure book, and we're going to start this off, so I'm going to read the back cover. This is a fantasy adventure with a difference. You are the hero. A pencil, an eraser, and 2 dice are all you need to embark on your quest. Success and vast riches, or failure, and savage death will depend on the decisions you make. Choose your fate and change it. In the dungeons and catacombs beneath a lonely mansion, you confront the evil vampire, Lord Tenebron. There he waits with his guardians, creatures of darkness, adventurers enslaved by his fiendish will, hideous undead monsters that seek to slay you. Despite the terrible dangers, you must prevail and battle your way to the very deepest chamber of the crypt, for only you can destroy the vampire lord and end his reign of terror for all time.
Well, that sounds awesome.
You are a skilled adventurer who has roamed over much of the known world. In your yearning for constant challenge and the excitement of battle, you have fought goblins, giants, trolls, ogres, dragons, even evil wizards, and many other strange, terrifying opponents. And you have always won. The years of adventure have honed your reflexes and fighting skills so that few men can stand against you in single combat. But be warned, you are highly unlikely to find and slay the vampire on your first attempt. You may not survive your first attempt, or even your second, but eventually you will confront the vampire lord in his lair. And now, the adventure begins. So, we're gonna create a character real quick.
Alright.
So, as always, we start off with a name. What's your name?
Rovert.
Robert? Robert. Okay. Your items that you currently have are... You have 10 gold pieces. You have a sword. A suit of armor. Studded leather. And a backpack. That's really it. Introduction. Imagine how it would feel to be Indiana Jones or Conan the Barbarian or Luke Skywalker, rather than merely sitting back and watching the adventures of those heroes. You could actually experience the thrill and danger at first hand. All that would stand between you and certain death would be your skill and daring, and the decisions you made. In Golden Dragon fantasy game books, you are the hero. You are a skilled adventurer who has roamed over much of the known world. In your yearning for constant challenge and excitement of battle, we've already read all this, blah 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 blah. To determine just how good an adventurer you are, you must use the dice.
We gotta go get dice.
We need 2 dice. I'll be right back. First, you need to roll 2 dice. I'm gonna roll again. Add 20 to this number and enter the total in the vigor box of your character sheet. Yep, saw that happening. Yep, that's not gonna work. Okay, so roll 2 d6s, add 20 to this number, and enter the total vigor, so you have 28. On your character sheet, this score represents your strength, fitness, and your general will to survive. Any wounds you take on your quest are subtracted from your vigor score. If it reaches 0, you are dead. Roll 1 die. Six. Add 3 to the number, so you have 9. The highest The higher this score, the better you are at resisting spells cast at you, and the more sensitive you are to psychic impressions. So you're pretty good. You're actually max. Roll 1 die. 5. Add 3. So 8, which is your agility. This score reflects how nimble you are and how high you can scale walls, leap across chasms, and so forth. Your name is Rovert, which is Trevor backwards, so that's pretty cool. Your vigor will change constantly during the adventure. Every time you are wounded, in fact, you may find healing potions in the vampire's crypt. These will restore some of the vigor points you have lost owing to wounds. But unless you are told otherwise, your vigor score must never exceed its original value. This is your normal vigor score, and you must keep a careful note of it. Your agility and PSI are less likely to change. Although this is possible, spraining your ankle, for example, might reduce your agility by 1 point. A magic helmet might increase your PSI, but as with vigor, your agility and PSI must never exceed their normal score unless you are specifically told otherwise. There's like a beam of sunlight right where I can sit comfortably. So I'm just gonna sit like right here. Okay. So combat. This is how combat works. Often during the course of your adventure, you will come across a creature or human enemy. You will come across a creature or human enemy whom you must fight. When this happens, you will be told to roll the dice. The number you roll will determine whether you wound your opponent or whether he or it wounds you. A typical entry might read like this. The ogre hefts, such a weird word. Hefts. The ogre lifts his axe and advances towards you. You have no escape route. You must fight. Roll 2 dice. And okay, 8. So 2 to 5, he hits you. 6 to 12, you hit it, and it loses 3, so it's a hit. So if you roll higher than 6 is a hit. If you roll 5 or less, it's a miss. If you miss, you take 3 points. If you hit, he takes 3 points. If you get 2 6s, it's an automatic kill. And if you roll 2 1s, they do double damage to you. Which would be 6 points from you. At the start of every combat, you should note down your opponent's vigor score in an empty encounter box. You then roll the dice to see who has been wounded. If both you and your opponent still have vigor scores of more than 0, you must continue to roll the dice until the vigor score blah 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 blah. Keep note of your vigor score blah blah blah. Okay. In some cases, you may start a fight and run. So you have to roll. If you want to roll from your battle, you roll 2d6s, and it has to be less than your agility score. You roll 2 1s, which is less than 8, so you ran away. If you rolled higher,
I would have been caught.
Then you get hit as you run. But if your dice roll is less than or equal to your agility score, then you dodge your opponent's parting blow and manage to escape without further injury. Alright. And now, of light, dude. I can't even see. Let's scoot forward just a tad. You are now almost ready to embark on your adventure. You should start at 1 and then proceed to further entries according to the decisions you make. Be warned! You are highly unlikely to find and slay the vampire on your first attempt. Make a map as you explore the crypt. If you are killed, fill in a new character sheet and try again, using the map you made before to guide you. You may not survive your first attempt, or even your second, but eventually you will confront the vampire lord in his lair. And now, the adventure begins. Dusk. in the Wistron Wood. As you trudge along a path which is barely more than a muddy ditch, shivering in the lashes of icy rain swept by the wind, you find it easy to believe the many uncanny and terrifying stories that surround this unwelcoming place. Far off, but coming nearer, you hear the cry of wolves. Night is drawing in. You realize you must soon find a place in which to shelter, as you have no wish to be caught out in the open after dark. Ahead, through a curtain of drizzle, you see a high stone wall choked with moss and ivy. A path leads from the main track, and you follow this to a tall gate in the wall. Through the iron bars of the gate, you see a bleak garden where unkempt trees and shrubs seem to cower in the rain. A gravel path leads across the lawn, presumably to a house where you could seek shelter for the night. It is a forbidding prospect, but as you hear the wolves call to one another quite close behind, you are aware that you have little choice. Just as you are about to reach for the latch of the gate, you see that its latticework forms a design. A man-like figure with huge curved talons. Will you open the gate, climb over the gate, or walk along the wall looking for another way in?
I will climb the gate.
You're gonna climb the gate? Heaving the rucksack containing your meager possessions over the wall, you clamber up onto the gate. Suddenly, there is a metallic snap, and you feel a stabbing pain in your ankle. Looking down, you are horrified to see that the taloned figure has come to life and is stepping out of the gate. Its iron fingers are closed like a man-trap around your leg. You struggle frantically but cannot free yourself. It draws back its arm and flings you across the lawn. Roll 1 dice. If you roll a 3 or more, you land in a patch of muddied grass, and although dazed and wet, you are unhurt. Ooh, you get hurt. You take 3 damage. Down to 25. Turn to 112. I don't know. If you roll a 1 or 2, you rolled a 2? The iron monster dashes you against the bole of a tree with back-breaking force, and the darkness of death closes in on you.
So,
He just breaks your back over the frickin' tree as you die.
just start.
You just died. Okay, so going back. Do you open the gate, climb over the gate, or walk along the wall looking for another way in?
I open the gate.
We're gonna keep track of how many times you die, too. You open the gate. Death. That was crazy, dude. Okay. As you turn to the latch, there is a harsh grating sound. With a sudden shock, you realize that the iron figure is stepping out of the latticework. You draw your sword as it moves towards you. With its raking claws, it is a frightening foe, but you are determined to get past it. Roll attack. Roll 2d6. What'd you get?
2 and 4.
A 5?
Yeah.
You swing for the...
6. 2 and 4.
Oh, okay, good. You swing for this creature as you crack it across the head. You deal 3 damage. It's got 12, so keep going. Round 2.
11's cocked. Outside. 9.
Damn, you whip it again. Deal another 6 damage. Go. Halfway dead.
6, 7.
You're expertly dodging and keep hitting this thing. Keep going.
How much HP?
It's got 3 left.
2 and 2.
4. Ooh. The Iron Gate is recognizing your skills and whaps you across the face. You take 3 damage. Down to 25. Last one. 10.
5, 10.
As you break this iron golem.
Does it drop anything?
If you win the fight, turn to 190.
Do you win anything from dropping
He doesn't look like it. You peer through the rain and the gathering gloom. A flash of lightning shows you a large mansion across the lawn. You head towards it, wondering who lives there and how they will take you to a stranger seeking food and shelter. You are just making your way around a large ornamental pond when you see a slender figure moving between the trees about 30 meters away. He carries a bow in one hand. As he comes towards you, you see that he is an elf. Will you greet him or draw your sword and close to attack?
Attack.
You attack. Schling! You pull out your sword and close in to attack. The elf circles around you looking for an opening. You notice his pale skin and foam-flecked lips and wonder if he is delirious with fever. Roll attack.
4, 4, 8.
You hit. Roll attack.
5 and 6.
You hit. Roll attack.
5 and 2.
As your sword slashes into this thing's chest, it collapses before you. If you beat him, turn to page 231. As the life ebbs from him, his insane ferocity fades. He is trying to tell you something. You bend down to hear his dying words. The evil lord sleeps until sunset. His eyes... The elf's head falls back as he goes limp in your arms. You notice 2 small puncture marks on his neck, as though he had been bitten by an animal. Perhaps that was what caused his fever. You drag his body under the branches of a tree, out of the rain. You can give him a decent burial in the morning. You walk cautiously across the lawn towards the big house. Turn to page 80. It is now dark, but you cannot see lights from any of the windows. The house looks dingy and very old. Gargoyle waterspouts, which must once have been lavish sculptures, have been weathered to shapeless lumps of stone by the centuries. The narrow, latticed windows remind you of eyes, and it is not the icy cold which makes you shiver now. As you walk along to the main door, you pass a small pond with a statue in the middle. Will you go over and examine the pond, or will you try to open the door of the house?
I'll go to the pond.
You go to the pond? Go to 99. The pond is full of stagnant water and decaying leaves. You also notice a few coins half buried in the mire at the bottom. Do you wish to throw some coins in? If so, decide how many you are throwing in and turn to page 36. If you would rather reach into the murky water to gather some of the coins you can see there, turn to 3. If you decide to ignore the pond and try the door instead, turn to 129.
I'll try to grab the coins.
Turn to 3. The water is very cold and slimy. You find several coins which you add to those in your belt pouch. Remember to write them on your character sheet. You are now 8 gold pieces richer. So now you have 18. You go over to the front door. Turn to 129. To your surprise, the door is not locked. It swings open at your touch, and you step into a large hall, from which wide stairs lead up to the next floor. There are double doors to your right. And in the deep shadows beyond the stairs, you can see a passage leading farther back into the house. You wait in the doorway until your eyes have got accustomed to the darkness. With sword in hand, you advance slowly across the hall. Do you go up the stairs to the next floor? Investigate the room beyond the double doors? Or go down the passage?
Investigate the room with the double doors.
You go to the double doors? The rain kind of dulls to a background noise as you enter. You walk into a long, draughty room, which seems to be a study or a library. There's no fire, although there are logs in the grate. However, try as you might to get a good blaze going, you cannot get the logs to burn. You are so cold and damp that you cannot stop your teeth from chattering. As you continue on to the far end of the room, in the darkness, you blunder into a desk, and almost knock something over to the floor. Feeling this object, you discover that it's a lantern. It is with considerable relief that you light the lantern and hold it up to dispel the shadows. Write this on your character sheet. Nice, lantern. You now see that there is a strange chair of intricately carved ivory next to the desk. You look around at the looming stacks of books. You may take down some of the books and examine them, or go out into the hall and take either of the stairs or the passage. What do you do?
I'm gonna go back to the stairs.
You don't look at any of the books? And that's what the chair looks like.
Well, you never told me that there was a chair.
You now see that there is a strange chair of intricately carved ivory next to the desk. There's a chair. You gotta listen to what I say. So what do you do? Do you look at the books, or leave the room and go up the stairs, or down the hall?
I look at the books.
You do look at the books. Don't let me tell you what to do. This is your dude. You've already died once.
I know.
I wouldn't trust anything. Alright. Go to 178. You blow dust from the cover of one of the volumes you have selected and open it at random. It seems to be kind of an encyclopedia, but arranged in no particular order, and without an index. Will you carry it over to the desk to study at greater length?
Yeah.
Or will you replace it and go out to the staircase or the passage? You study it more? Go to 79. As you sit down at the desk, the arms of the chair come alive and seize you with skeletal fingers. The chair is made not of ivory, but of human bones. Roll 1 die. If you roll a 4 or more, you are able to wrench yourself free of the chair's grip and hurry from the room with your lantern.
5.
Ooh, turn to 51. You swing the light of the lantern around the hall. For a moment, you entertain the unsettling notion that unseen creatures are darting and scurrying soundlessly to hide in the shadows. You dismiss such an idea as a trick of your nerves and consider which way to go now. Will you go up the stairs or go down the hall?
I think I'll go up the stairs.
You go up the stairs. Go to 252. With the lantern, you are able to thoroughly search the upstairs room. Did I go to the right one? Yeah. They are all thick with dust and do not seem to have been used in many years. There are several bedrooms, and if you do not mind the dust, you could lie down to sleep. Otherwise, you may go downstairs and investigate the hall.
I don't want to... Okay. I want to go downstairs and investigate the hall.
Okay. Go to 36. The passage is paneled in a hard redwood, which has been deliberately broken and splintered in places. You are wondering about the reason for this when you notice you have drawn level with a narrow doorway in the right-hand side of the passage. A few meters ahead of you, the passage turns to the left. At the bend, you can make out a large door bearing a gilded design in the shape of a crucifix. Will you open the narrow door, advance to try the door with the crucifix symbol on it, or continue along the passage and turn the corner?
I'm gonna try the narrow door.
Go to 56. The door opens to reveal a small, cluttered room, which is really little more than a closet. You notice some boxes and crates, coils of rope, and numerous other items. You may go in and examine this apparent junk, or continue on and either open the door with the crucifix symbol on it or turn around the corner.
Open the door with the crucifix symbol.
Okay. Go to 29. I would have looked through that stuff. There was some rope in there. Beyond the door is some sort of workroom. A portly man in monk's robes sits before a crackling log fire. He is putting the finishing touches to a shuttered lantern he has been working on. He looks up with an expression of surprise. Do you use your sword to threaten him, or greet him as a friend?
I'll greet him as a friend.
Go to 215. Oh, this one's long. The monk takes you over to the fire so that you can warm yourself while he bustles about fetching hot broth and a cup of herb tea. As you set about devouring this, the monk goes back to working on his lantern, content to wait until you have finished. Restore 3 HP. Nice. So you're back up to full. For the nourishing meal, but do not exceed blah blah blah. Seeing that you have eaten your fill at last, the monk turns to speak with you. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Father Harkus. You are most welcome here, my friend. But I must tell you that this little room of mine is the only sanctuary in a place of terrible evil. For you have found your way to Tenebron Hall, compared to which the dangers of Wistron Wood are as nothing. But I see you are a stranger, an adventurer from far away, so you will not have heard the tale. He kind of looks at you. Bless you.
Thank you.
Takes a sip of his tea. Many years ago, the 13th Lord Tenebron lived here. He was an evil man, vilest of an evil line. Rather than submit to mortality, he signed a pact with the Prince of Darkness and became one of the undead, a vampire. For nearly 2 centuries, he has lurked in the crypts below this house, venturing forth by night to entrap his victims. Those he does not drain of lifeblood are made his slaves by his hypnosis. Father Harkus gestures around the room at the crucifixes and garlic and other items. Do you know what a crucifix is?
No.
It's a cross. With my knowledge of the undead and their weaknesses, perhaps I could confront Lord Tenebron, but I could never get to him. I am no adventurer, and he is guarded by many foul monsters in the dungeons below us. So I wait here, close to the vampire's lair, but protected by my holy talismans, and give what aid I can to any brave warrior who comes here prepared to challenge Tenebron. The last was a noble elf. He descended into the crypts 2 weeks ago and has not returned. A log hisses in the grate, and Father Harkus leans forward urgently to grasp your shoulder. Will you dare to oppose the evil vampire? I can give you something to aid you, either a small crucifix or a magic potion of iron will. Unfortunately, I can offer you only one item because they take time to make, and I must keep one to give to the next adventurer who comes this way in case Well, in case you should fail. He stares grimly into the fire for a few moments. Decide whether you will take the crucifix or the potion of iron will.
I'll take the potion of iron will.
Take the potion. He wishes you luck in the adventure ahead. You thank him and make your way along the passage that leads to the dungeons. Turn to 105. That was cool. That was a cool room.
Yeah, that is really cool. So I'm going straight to the dungeon.
You find a short flight of steps that lead down to a cellar door. Do you have a lantern?
Yes.
If not, you will have no light to see by. You must go back and try blah 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 blah. If you already have a lantern, you hold it aloft and descend the steps to open the cellar door. Turn to 82. Got a lantern. You swing the beam of your lantern around the small room. There are racks full of bottles of wine which have lain unopened and gathering dust for more than a score of years. Another door in the opposite wall is barred shut. Will you cross the room and open the door, or will you first sample the wine?
I'll cross the room and open the door.
Go to 78. You lift the heavy oak beam and pull back the door. The hinges have obviously not been oiled for a long time. There is an ominous creak as the door swings open. You pass through into a corridor. After a short distance, you come to a door in the wall to your right. There appears to be an opening in the other side of the corridor, just a few meters further on. If you wish to open the door, turn to 148. If you wish to go on, turn to 219.
Open the door.
Open the door. 148. The room beyond the door has whitewashed walls, and black rafters crisscross the low ceiling. To judge by the four-poster bed against one wall, it is presumably someone's bedroom. But you see no sign of the occupant. A long table to the right of the door is strewn with a number of runic manuscripts. And you also notice a jug of water and a plate of bread and cold meats. A roaring fire burns in the grate, and beside it is a poker, coal scuttle, and bellows. Basically just stuff to keep the fire going. There are 2 large candlesticks on the mantelpiece, and you step over to inspect them. They are solid silver. Remember to take note of them on your character sheet if you like to take them. Do you want to take the candlesticks?
Yes.
Candlesticks, times 2. Just then you hear a squawk. Turning, you see a hunchbacked old woman in a pointed cap and filthy robes standing in the doorway. A mangy crow is perched on her shoulder. 2 pairs of cold, hostile eyes regard you for a moment, and then the witch bangs her staff on the floor and tells you to leave her chamber at once. What do you do? Do you leave or refuse?
Alright, you wanna fight? Let's go.
You refuse. Go to 163. The crow squawks again and flies from the witch's shoulder to settle on one of the rafters. Your hand is on the hilt of your sword, but before you can react, the witch has brushed past you and hurled a gray powder into the fire. At once, a thick, greasy smoke billows from the hearth. Before your startled gaze, it forms into a murky, ape-like form. Behold how I deal with meddlesome interlopers! Shrieks the witch as she orders her smoke monster forward. Will you run to the door? Or stand and fight the creature? Or do you try something else? You turn to the door and run? You're like, nope. Alright, you nope out of there. Go to 114. As you rush for the door, the monster strikes at your unprotected back. Lose 3 points. You stagger out through the door. And stay out! Shrieks the witch as the door slams shut behind you. Turn to 219. You continue along the corridor as far as the archway in the left-hand wall. Ahead of you, the corridor continues for another 10 meters or so, and then opens into a large room. If you wish to step through the archway, turn to 276. If you pass straight onto the large room at the end of the corridor, turn to 210.
I want to go to the large room.
210. You see double doors at the other end of a long gallery. As you walk over to these, you glance at the portraits that adorn the side walls. They show a succession of dissolute nobles, each more depraved looking than the last. The final portrait of the 13th Lord Tenebron, according to the copper plaque below it, shows a person of such obvious person of such obvious and overwhelming evil that you almost gasp aloud. You step back next to a body on the floor. You had not noticed this, hidden in the shadows as it is. And as you stoop over it, you see that it is the skeleton of a long-dead knight, clad in rusting plate armor. His sword, however, has not been rusted. It has a blade of shimmering blue metal, and there is a huge amethyst set into the pommel. Do you take the sword?
Yes.
Turn to 75. You heft is such a weird word. You heft the dead knight's sword and slice it through the air a couple of times, marveling at its excellent balance. Of the 2 swords you now possess, this and your original weapon, you must decide which to carry and fight with, and which you will sling on your back as a spare.
I will fight with the one that I just got.
Yeah, I agree. You swing open the double doors and walk through the next room. Turn to 251. So you got a magic sword? We'll just write that. We'll write blue sword. Turn to 251. Okay.
I'm starting to get hungry.
Yeah, this is the last. We gotta end it here. The high-ceilinged room you are in seems to have been a dining hall at some time in the past. Presumably no one uses it now because the old oak table in front of you is thick with dust, and cobwebs veil the goblets of wine that have been left there. Stone steps lead up from either side of the room to doors in the opposite wall. Between them, above the hearth, hangs a large painting depicting a man with a longbow, standing beside an archery butt. A forest is visible in the background. As you walk across the room, you are startled by a sudden movement. The man in the painting puts up his bow and shoots. The arrow, which tears into your shoulder, is real enough, and you do not waste any time staring in disbelief as the man draws another arrow from his quiver. And that's where we're going to pause.
We got pretty far.
You already died once.
Yeah, from an iron gate that grabbed me by my foot, threw me into a tree, and smacked my back.
Right on. Thank you guys so much for coming to check out this video. This is kind of a different video, I know, but if anybody stayed towards the end of this on this quick little adventure, go ahead and drop us a like and, I don't know, tell us what you would have done differently. Peace.